My name is William M. Windsor, and this is a series of videos on judicial corruption. Just to give you a little bit of background on me so that you'll understand that hopefully that I'm speaking from a position of some intelligence on this and I'm not some nutcase. Let me give you a little background. I'm a 62-year-old grandfather. I'm retired. I started over 50 companies during my career. I also was president of a company for Goldman Sachs and CEO of a Bain Capital company. So I have a lot of business experience, magazine publisher and trade show producer and conference producer for many years. Started my first business in 1969 as a college student at Texas Tech University. I'm not an attorney, but I'm smarter than most attorneys, and I work a lot harder. So in this first video, I'd like to tell you how I came to discover the rampant corruption that we have in our judicial system. These are my opinions, though I will tell you that I can document facts with evidence and proof my claims, and you can find that documentation online at www.lawlessamerica.com. That's LAWLESSAMERICA.com. If you have any other questions, you can email me, bill@lawlessamerica.com. I'm always happy to substantiate anything, because one of the challenges we have in making people aware of the judicial corruption problem that we have in our country is that they just doubt that what somebody's saying is the truth. So I can prove it. Make it easy. Just accept that what I'm telling you is the truth and tell your relatives and friends and neighbors. So I was sitting at home enjoying dinner with my wife of 39 years on August 29th, 2005 when a knock came at the door, and a process server handed me this 1/2 to 2/3 of an inch thick set of documents, a lawsuit. I was being sued by a company called Maid of the Mist Corporation, the people that do the boat rides in Niagara Falls. I'd never done business with Maid of the Mist Corporation. Had no dealings with them in any manner that would cause me to be involved in a lawsuit with them. So I took the papers, put them on my desk, went back and finished dinner. Later that evening I sat down to read it and discovered that it was completely bogus. They totally made up the claims that they put in this lawsuit, and there just wasn't anything in it that was true. Now there's two ways you can do a lawsuit. You can do a general complaint where nothing is sworn, and a lot of times people make some claims that are kind of outlandish that they don't know whether they can prove or not. And then there's this type of complaint. This is a sworn, verified complaint. So the president of Maid of the Mist, a guy named Christopher Glenn, sat down and pen in hand and swore before a notary under penalty of perjury that everything that was stated in here was true and correct based upon his personal knowledge. And none of it was true and correct as far as I'm concerned, and none of it was based on his personal knowledge. So as I read the lawsuit, I figured, well, this won't last very long because it's completely made up. Had to hire an attorney, had to pay a fortune in legal fees to deal with this. I thought the lawsuit would disappear pretty quickly because it was a fraud on the court, a false sworn complaint that amounts to perjury, and to be quite honest, I figured Christopher Glenn would spend quite a few years in prison as a result. But from the very first word that Judge Arundhati Evans, the federal judge who was assigned to the case, the very first word she said, she ruled in favor of Maid of the Mist. Every single solitary time. I was just completely shocked. She's been a federal judge for 32 years. And when simple issues of law were ruled in their favor and against us, and when everything that they said was bogus, I just couldn't imagine. At first I thought, well, she's not paying attention. Then as things went on, I thought, well, she's got a law clerk who doesn't have the sense that God gave a hammer. And ultimately I came to realize that she is simply a corrupt federal judge. She is a totally dishonest, totally corrupt judge. And that's more than my opinion. I have that documented. I subsequently learned from attorneys that Judge Evans has a history of deciding how she's going to rule on a case, and then it doesn't matter what the facts are or what the law is, that's how she rules. And she certainly did that in our case. I think we had something like 100 contested motions, and out of 100 motions, she ruled in favor of May to the Mist 100 times, and she ruled in favor of me not once. I mean, there might have been a few cases in there where there's some motions that we might not have won or shouldn't have won, but truth is we should have won most of them. She simply ruled against us on everything. Now, this isn't a case of me being upset because somebody ruled against me. I mean, when you read the law and you've got the case law and it absolutely clearly establishes what the law is in the situation, and the judge goes completely against it and ignores the facts, you've got a problem. I knew the problem was really severe when I had an opportunity to go with my attorney to one of the only conference that the judge ever allowed in 5 years in her chambers. And I asked for the permission to speak. And I said, Your Honor, I've brought here with me today documentation of over 400 counts of perjury by Mr. Glenn and his fellow managers. And as a result of all of their depositions, we have completely proven that everything in the sworn verified complaint of Mr. Glenn is false. She cut me off in mid-sentence and says, we're not here to discuss that today. And she never discussed it, refused to ever discuss it. She has committed hundreds of counts of perjury in her various orders, and again, I've documented all of this. She obstructed justice by concealing documents, by denying the most basic constitutional rights. You think you're supposed to be able to call witnesses? We weren't allowed to. You think you're supposed to be able to cross-examine witnesses of the other side? I wasn't allowed to. You think you're allowed to present evidence into the court record? No, I wasn't allowed to. You think you'll be able to file a lawsuit? You're given the right to petition the government for your grievances? No. Judge Evans, when I tried to file a lawsuit, she had the court clerk's office intercept it and never allowed it to be filed, and then issued an order saying that I couldn't file any lawsuits. So the list goes on and on. I could literally list hundreds and hundreds of examples. So naive me thought, okay, the Court of Appeals will come to my rescue. The United States Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit is here in Atlanta. Judge Evans, 32-year judge, has been a judge longer than any of the people on the Court of Appeals. So needless to say, they're all her buddies. So everything that I appealed to the 11th Circuit, they rubber-stamped Judge Evans. So it became clear to me that I was dealing with corruption not only at the district court level, but also at the Court of Appeals. So I set out to document every single case I could of dishonesty and corruption by all of the judges that were involved. If there was any opportunity for me to appeal an order or a ruling, I appealed. And as a result of that, I've got a pile of orders that I can show were issued improperly. All types of dishonesty, all types of improper activity by the court clerk's office, and criminal acts by judges, and just complete, total dishonesty. So I decided to take it to the Supreme Court, and we will pick up with video number 2 and let you know about my efforts with the United States Supreme Court. Thank you very much. I'm William M. Windsor, and this is part 2 of my series of videos on judicial corruption. In part 1, I told you how I was minding my own business in 2005 when some people sued me and nothing whatsoever to deal with the lawsuit was true. Unfortunately, Judge Orinda D. Evans, for whatever reasons, not the law or the facts, ruled against me. And then the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals supported her every step of the way. I have proven with documentation in the words of the opposing party that I didn't do anything whatsoever that they claimed I did. They've admitted it. Judge Evans refused to look at that. There were over 400 counts of perjury involved in the case. Neither she nor the Court of Appeals would even consider it. didn't want to discuss the fact that my constitutional rights had been just totally obliterated in this situation. Now, I'm not the only person in the world who has this problem. I just happen to be somebody who is speaking up about it and who chose to pursue the judges. Attorneys won't pursue judges. I talked to maybe 20, 25 attorneys and couldn't get one who would represent me, so I pursued it on my own. The reason we don't have a lot of court precedents or cases where people have attempted to go after the judges is simply because the lawyers won't pursue them. But I did pursue them. I continue to pursue them, and I'll pursue them for the rest of my life. So as the first video ended, I said I was about to go to the Supreme Court, and I would tell everybody what happened there. I did file originally a petition for writ of certiorari with the Supreme Court. That's an appeal. Unfortunately, somewhere in the not too distant past, the Supreme Court decided to take upon themselves to take them out of being in the business of appeals. So they now approve and consider only about 1% of the appeals that are presented to them each year. So I didn't have much hope for this one to be successful, but I completely laid out all the constitutional violations and thought, you know, if there's any justice in the world, the Supreme Court will see these fully documented, uncontroverted, not disputed, and will decide this is important and rule in my favor, or at least give me an opportunity to come up and present my arguments to them. But nope, they put me in the 99% pile. So that was a bit of a blow, but I expected it. When I was talking with the clerk at the Supreme Court, I was told that I should have filed a petition for writ of mandamus. Now, a petition for writ of mandamus, unlike an appeal, is an original proceeding that takes place in an appellate court. I didn't realize you could do that at the Supreme Court. I'm not an attorney. But the clerk assured me that I could. So I filed not one, but 3 petitions for writ of mandamus against the judges who were involved in the dealings with me. Judge Arundhati Evans, Judge William S. Duffy, and I believe it was 9 of the judges from the United States Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit. In each of these cases, I had documented proof of perjury, obstruction of justice, completely ignoring the laws and the facts, and allowing massive violation of constitutional rights. I filed all of this, and you have to produce it in a special form for the Supreme Court. You have to prepare booklets. These are booklets that are not the size that you can print off your normal laser printer. So it's very expensive, which is something ridiculous that the Supreme Court requires. All they'd have to do is change the size to where it could be printed on an 8.5 by 11 sheet and folded in half, and then people could do it without a great expense. But this is all of the proof. You have to retype all the orders. You have to reformat in their font and type size, which is 12 point. And this is all of the documentation that was presented. 1,500 pages of proof, all sworn under oath. None of the judges responded to the lawsuit. None of the opposing party didn't. So this was totally before the court. And the court on January 18th, 2011, rendered 3 decisions in each of the 3 petitions for writ of mandamus. This is a 2-sentence letter, and it says one word, denied. The word denied means refused. I got 3 of those. Here are the other 2. So I received 3 words in response to my 1,500 and some odd page presentation. Refused to answer negatively to my questions that were presented. The questions I presented to the court refused to answer positively. The questions I presented to the court were, will you tell federal judges that they don't have the right to violate and void the Constitution? And the Supreme Court says we refuse to tell them that. So my position is that the Supreme Court has, in essence, voided the Constitution. They had a specific obligation to review my action and to rule on it, not 1 or 2, but 3 times. And 3 times they said they refused to tell the judges that they have to go by the Constitution, and they refused to disclose to the American people the tremendous corruption that we have in the federal courts. I was very disappointed, again, not surprised, After all, the Supreme Court judges are products of the system, if you will. So they grew up in a corrupt system, and now they sit up in Washington, D.C., and they're part of a corrupt system. Well, I'm not going to stop there. I have filed petitions for rehearing. Back to the printer. Again, they have to be a special size. They have to have a special cover. I originally presented them in white. They returned it to me and said it had to be tan. So I filed these, and these will be heard sometime in the next month or two. And these very specifically address the issues with the Supreme Court judges. Based upon their refusal, in my case, they have absolutely violated their oath of office, which requires them to support the Constitution. Their only authority and power comes from the Constitution. So for them to receive unquestionable documentation of violation of constitutional rights by the hundreds, and to refuse to discuss these or to deal with them other than a one-word refusal means they simply have violated their oath, they have violated the Constitution, and in my opinion have committed treason to the Constitution. That's kind of a tough word, but that's a legal term that has to do with when judges in authority don't support the Constitution. So in my opinion, what they've done is committed treason. This is widespread. The corruption is in all courts, especially bad in the federal courts. But you talk to other people, it's just as bad or worse in the family courts, the bankruptcy courts, county courts, state courts. The corruption is military courts. It's everywhere. There are unbelievable stories of judicial corruption. Because my action with the Supreme Court got a lot of internet publicity, I have received thousands of emails. I think it's over 4,000 at this point. Hundreds of phone calls, 600, 700, 800. I actually took the phone number off my website because I can't handle it anymore. People telling me stories about what happened to them. So, ladies and gentlemen, there is absolutely no question that we have a completely corrupt judicial system where judges will do whatever they want. They're tyrannical. We, in essence, live in a police state. You think you have rights to go to court, to defend yourself, to prosecute a claim against someone else, but you don't have any rights. I wrote to the district attorney, the U.S. attorney, the attorney general, the House and Senate Judiciary Committees, every member of the House and Senate, wrote to the president, every presidential candidate, and thus far the only responses I've gotten are from my senator and my congressman, who said that it wasn't something they could deal with. So much for our political and governmental system. I think the government's just as corrupt as the judiciary. Judiciary is just one branch. When none of these people will do anything to protect a citizen, we have a bigger problem. I'm not a crazy person. I'm just a pretty normal guy who's been a businessman all of his life, who until 5 years ago thought the courts were honest and judges were honest. I now know that they aren't. We have a problem. We have to somehow get the American people to be aware of this. The mainstream media will not cover it because they're afraid of the judges. I've been told that by an investigative reporter for the local paper. I have contacted and sent news releases and letters and faxes and emails to thousands and thousands of members of the media, and with the exception of a few internet and local radio stations, nobody's covered it. So we have to find a way to tell the people what's going on because we don't have any rights. What we have put together is a group of people who are upset about this and have started talking. There have been efforts over the past, and there's various organizations and groups that have been formed, but nobody has really gotten anything accomplished to speak of. So we're going to begin having a series of video conferences on the internet where we will get a group of people together and see if we can't come up with a plan. Somebody has got to do something. America, we're in crisis. Thank you.